My best friend trusted me for 20 years, but I betrayed him with his wife. Now he's gone. She's exposed, and I'm left with nothing but regret. I never imagined my life would come to this sitting here, debating whether to confess to my best friend of 20 years that I've been sleeping with his wife for the past year. If I could go back and stop myself from making the first mistake, I would. I would do anything to undo the damage I've caused. But the truth is, there's no way to fix this without ruining everything. Mark and I have been best friends since we were kids. We've been through everything together: school, heartbreak, family tragedies. He's like a brother to me. When he met Sophie 5 years ago, I was genuinely happy for him. She was sharp, funny, and had this warm, down-to-earth charm that made you feel comfortable immediately. I couldn't have picked a better partner for him if I tried. At first, everything seemed perfect between them. They got married about a year after they started dating, and I watched Mark settle in a married life, like it was the role he was born to play. But over time, things started to change. About a year and a half ago, Mark began opening up to me about problems in their marriage. He said Sophie seemed distant, like she was pulling away from him, but he didn't know why. He figured it was just the usual ups and downs of marriage stress, work and routines. I didn't think much of it either. Relationships aren't perfect, right? Looking back now, I think that was where the cracks started forming, not in their marriage, but in my judgment. Sophie started talking to me too. It wasn't anything inappropriate at first. She'd vent about Mark, about how he seemed distracted or how he wasn't as attentive as he used to be. She never said anything that outright blamed him, but you could tell she was frustrated. And I listened because, wow, what else was I supposed to do? I thought I was being a good friend to both of them, helping them work through their issues. But somewhere along the way, the lines blurred. Sophie and I started texting more often, first about random things, then about more personal topics. It felt harmless at the time, but it wasn't. The boundary I thought I was maintaining wasn't really there. I didn't notice how far things had gone until the night it finally crossed the line. It was about a year ago. Mark was out of town for work, and Sophie asked me to come over to help her move some furniture around. It felt like a completely normal favor. I'd been to their house countless times. It wasn't weird for me to be there without Mark. But that night, something shifted. We ended up sitting in the living room, talking for hours. She told me how lonely she'd been feeling, how she thought Mark had stopped seeing her the way he used to. And instead of telling her she needed to work it out with him, I told her I understood. I told her I saw her, and then it happened. We kissed. I should have left right then and there, but I didn't. I stayed, and one mistake turned into a string of mistakes that's been going on for the past year. And at first it felt thrilling, like we were sharing something secret and forbidden. But that didn't last long. The guilt hit me fast and hard, but I kept pushing it aside. I told myself I'd end it before it got too serious. I told myself it wasn't hurting anyone as long as no one found out. Lies I fed myself to make it easier to keep doing the wrong thing. Then, 2 months ago, Sophie told me she was pregnant. That was the moment everything came crashing down. She said she was certain the baby wasn't Mark's, and I believed her because their intimacy had all but disappeared by then. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I didn't know what to say or what to do. Sophie was calm, eerily calm. She told me she wanted to keep the baby, but that we couldn't keep living like this. She said we needed to tell Mark that it was time to come clean so we could start fresh as a real couple. I don't even have the words to describe how that felt. The idea of sitting down with Mark and telling him that I'd been sleeping with his wife, that I'd gotten her pregnant, made me physically sick. Mark's been nothing but good to me, always. He trusts me completely. He's confided in me about his fears, his insecurities, and his struggles with Sophie. He's told me he feels like he's failing her as a husband, and every time he says that, it's like a knife in my gut because I know the truth. It's not him. It's me. The worst part is how hard Mark has been trying to fix things with Sophie. Over the past couple of months, he's gone out of his way to plan date nights, cook her favorite meals, and even buy her little gifts just to make her smile, and none of it works. Sophie has been colder and more distant than ever, and Mark doesn't understand why. He keeps coming to me for advice, asking what he's doing wrong, and I have to sit there and pretend like I don't know. It's killing me. Meanwhile, Sophie has been pressuring me more and more to tell him the truth. At first, she was gentle about it, saying we needed to do the right thing. But lately, she's been more forceful. She says she can't live with the guilt anymore, that it's not fair to her or the baby to keep living this lie. But I can't help wondering if it's really guilt that's driving her or if it's something else. She's been acting differently, one moment sweet and affectionate, the next cold and demanding. It's like she's unraveling, and she's determined to drag me down with her. Last night, she gave me an ultimatum. She said I have 1 week to tell Mark, or she's going to tell him herself. She said it's not fair to keep lying to him, and honestly, she's right. But the idea of coming clean? I don't think I can do it. I can't even imagine what it would do to Mark. This is the man who's been my closest friend for 20 years, the person who's always had my back. And I betrayed him in the worst way possible. Now, I don't know what to do. If I confess, I lose him. If Sophie tells him I lose him, either way, I've already lost. But the clock is ticking, and I'm running out of time to decide. Update. I wish I didn't have to come back here. I wish I could tell you that everything worked out, or that I found some magical solution to fix the disaster I created. But I promise to be honest, and here's the truth. Everything is worse than I imagined, and I've destroyed the most important relationship in my life. After posting my original story, I spent days reading your responses. A lot of you told me I needed to come clean, and you were right. The weight of what I was hiding was unbearable, and Mark, my best friend, deserved the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. I kept replaying the past year in my head, thinking about all the times Mark trusted me, confided in me, leaned on me, while I was stabbing him in the back. I couldn't live with myself anymore. So I asked Mark to meet me at my place. I told him I needed to talk to him about something serious. He showed up that evening, looking a little worried, but otherwise unsuspecting. I could barely look him in the eye as I started to speak. My hands were shaking, and I could feel my chest tightening with every word. I told him everything. I admitted that Sophie and I had been having an affair for the past year. I told him that she claimed she was pregnant and that the baby was mine. I tried to explain how it started, how I had let things go too far, but none of it mattered. Nothing I could say would justify what I had done. When I finally looked up at him, I saw the betrayal written all over his face. He didn't yell. He didn't interrupt me. He just sat there staring at me like I was a stranger. I'll never forget that look. It was the kind of heartbreak you can feel in the pit of your stomach. When he finally spoke, his voice was shaking. He asked me why I would do this to him, why I didn't stop it before it got this far. I didn't have answers. I mumbled something about how I'd been weak, how I didn't mean for it to happen. But it all sounded hollow, even to me. I told him I was sorry, but he cut me off. He told me that sorry didn't mean anything anymore. Then he called Sophie. He told her to come over immediately. She must have known something was wrong, because she showed up quickly. As soon as she walked in, Mark confronted her. He demanded that she tell him the truth, and when she hesitated, he turned to me and told me to say it. I couldn't. I'd already said my piece, but Sophie eventually confessed. She admitted to the affair, confirmed everything I'd said, and tried to justify it by saying she'd felt neglected in their marriage. Mark wasn't having any of it. He told her that if she had been unhappy, she could have come to him or left him. Instead, she chose to cheat with his best friend. He was shaking with anger. Then, he sat down for about 15 minutes, staring at the floor, before finally asking for a paternity test. She had the audacity to lie again, claiming she was pregnant with his baby, before I could say anything. Mark told Sophie he didn't believe her about the baby. He said if she could lie about their marriage and the affair, there was no reason to trust her about anything else. I stayed silent. I didn't blame him for doubting me or her. If I'd been in his shoes, I would have done the same thing. The next few weeks were hell. Mark didn't speak to me at all. He stopped answering my texts and calls. I don't even know if he read them. Sophie tried to reach out to both of us, but I ignored her too. I didn't want anything to do with her anymore. I couldn't handle the chaos. Then the paternity test results came back. Neither of us was the father. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or sick. Sophie had been lying to both of us. There was another man, someone else, she'd been seeing behind both Mark's back and mine. She tried to explain herself, saying she'd been confused and scared, but no one was listening to her anymore. Mark completely shut her out. He filed for divorce the next day, packed her things, and kicked her out of the house. As far as I know, she's left town. Mark made it clear to everyone in our circle of friends what she'd done. She's been completely cut off by everyone, and I don't think she'll ever come back. As for me, Mark cut me out too. He didn't yell at me again or confront me after that first night. He didn't even look at me when we got the test results. He just left. He blocked my number, stopped responding to anything, and hasn't made any effort to contact me since. I haven't seen or heard from him in weeks, except through his lawyers regarding his divorce filings. Our mutual friends know what happened, and while a couple of them have tried to stay neutral, most of them have sided with Mark, and I don't blame them. I deserve it. I betrayed someone who trusted me more than anyone else in his life, and I've ruined everything. The hardest part is the silence. The fact that Mark didn't even scream at me or try to fight me after the confession hurts more than anything else. He didn't see me as worth the effort. It's like I'm dead to him now. I wish I could tell you that I've learned something profound from all this. But all I've learned is that I'm capable of destroying everything I care about. I've lost my best friend, my social circle, and any shred of self-respect I had. I'm trying to pick up the pieces and move forward, but I don't know how to live with the weight of what I've done. I'll regret this for the rest of my life. All I can do now is try to be a better person, if that's even possible.